brief primer to sum up the primary thesis. We want to put the short thesis in the very beginning. Primal Shinto, as a primitive longing, shall be relevant from the cave age onto the space age, because it speaks to something so primal and so primitive and so instinctual, based on the most primal desires of the heart. It will be representative and relevant from the time we were hunter-gatherers onto the age when we are gazing up upon planets from aboard starships. Primal Shinto will be with us when we are limited to dwelling in caves, to the age in which we are potentially living outside of the planet Earth itself. No matter how advanced our technology becomes, no matter how many changes in the economic systems, the mode of production from hunter-gatherer to pastoral society, to agricultural society, to the first industrial age, to the second industrial age, the third industrial revolution, to the fourth industrial revolution, and who knows, maybe there's going to be some futuristic communism. No matter what the system of economics, whether hunter-gatherer, whether feudal, whether mercantile, whether capitalist, whether socialist, whether communist, future communism or technological communism, no matter what type of economic social system, the primal urge, the primal nature, the primal instincts of mankind is going to remain part and parcel to our biology, so long as we don't start altering our own biology, which is something I'm fundamentally against. So long as we retain our biology, Primal Shinto will be with us, and Primal Shinto will be relevant from the cave onto other worlds. I'm going to try to keep this discussion as bare bones as possible. The prior slideshow is basically encapsulates the reason why we are against the idea of erecting religious monuments, whether formal or informal, because under our Primal Shinto, to be distinguished but not opposed to be distinguished from but not opposed to, as another branch of Shinto, again, as our Primal Shinto, to be distinct from but not opposed to, as part and parcel to Shrine Shinto, where people may and are encouraged to perform, to do Shrine Shinto, as opposed to believe in Shrine Shinto. This is our spin on it. We do not need a shrine simply because the kami, indeed you are looking at elements of kami, including volcanoes, the place where kami dwells. Kami is nature. Nature is spirit. And as such, the shrine itself is nature. So, for example, for kami at a volcano, there is no need to erect a shrine. There is no need to erect, deface, alter, modify, or do anything. This is the perspective of our Primal Shinto. And we're going to get to the theoretical underpinnings of our perspectives vis-a-vis other religions. The reason, first of all, anecdotal, personal biography, why we are Primal Shinto. First of all, how we define Primal Shinto. First, let's talk about mainstream Shrine Shinto. In our opinion, Shrine Shinto itself, regular Shinto of Japan, it is still not, it's not a religion, because we've already discussed why on so many levels it's not a religion, and how even the practitioners there don't perceive it to be a religion. So this is why you can have, again, 86% of people as non-religious or atheist, or even those who are basically who are just completely irreligious, and they can culturally do Shrine Shinto. Basically, it's just, for many people, it's just like different festivals, like a spring festival, a moon festival, a lantern festival, a tea festival. They are not some deep, reverent things. So, as such, Shrine Shinto, which I've performed, again I say performed as opposed to have faith in. So this is why Shinto is not really religion. It's something you do rather than believe, perform. You imagine how ridiculous it would be to say, how is your spiritual walk with Amaterasu? The Shinto divinities, the kami, are not some. It doesn't work like that. That's not. It's almost gonna go like a Star Wars reference. That's not how. That's not how it all works. You're not gonna ask, how is your walk journey with Amaterasu? That's. It's not a religion. Okay, so you can't go there. It's not. Basically, it's not a religion. But now we're gonna discuss something a little more academic here. So the reason why we follow Shrine Shinto and our own Primal Shinto is because we are fundamentally irreligious. We are raised atheist. We live atheist, and even as atheists, we had a deep fascination at a young age with evolution, velociraptors, planets. It's kind of like nerdy stuff, right? Basically obsessions about dinosaurs. Completely atheist, and we were surrounded by religious people around us, basically Christians, professing Christians, and we were always opposed and in conflicts. But what never, what always was the recurring theme, unchanging, unrelenting recurrent theme, is the veneration for the nature of the universe, the Earth, planets. So I have a lot of astrophotography, a lot of planet astronomical observation. I would say astronomical observation because I'm engaged in basically in a scientific debate here. But the recurrent theme is a fascination for science, a religious fascination for science. So my primal Shinto is what the atheists describe as. They always say I'm an atheist, but basically level 9 atheist, but I have awe and reverence for the cosmos. So my primal Shinto can be adapted to that atheism. So it's more like awe 2.0, awe 3.0. If you want to go to awesome 4.0, you might basically you can lever it to veneration of Amaterasu, personified divinities, or you can say the kami is just, there's no gods as any religion envisions it. It's just force of nature. So you have the option to say the kami are not gods, not in any sense of the word God, but the elements of nature. That is legitimate theology. So you have within Primal Shinto, even within Shrine Shinto, you can be atheist. You can do Shrine Shinto as an atheist. Most people, basically, that's beautiful. So Primal Shinto and Shrine Shinto appeals to us because we are fundamentally irreligious. And now we want to talk about our view vis-a-vis other religions. So here we go. There are things that are basically, to understand the framework of religion, religious beliefs, in our opinion, are deeply shaped by the evolution of history. Historical materialism is true. In a society that is based on rough equality, hunter-gathering, you don't have some of the major systematic social inequalities that both Buddha and Jesus dealt with. So, in our opinion, a lot of the things that are held up as eternal truth, for example, life is suffering, you will always have the poor, they are not, in our opinion, eternal constructs, but they are cultural constructs based on the emergence of advanced civilizations. Even today, there are uncontacted tribes. There are people who live in a so-called primal mode of subsistence, where people are roughly happy from cradle to grave. There is suffering in the civilization, but that occurs when you have these complicated, complex divisions of labor. So, in our perspective, the more complex a religious teaching is, it reflects the complexities of the society in which they live. And the most primal religions, many of them don't have any written records. They are completely forgotten because they existed in a time when people didn't have writing. which this is also a sidebar tangent. I personally believe that people learn how to speak before they can ever write. In Japan, people had a spoken language before they adopted a foreign Chinese written system, which became simplified as kana, the types of kana systems. But basically, people speak before they write, and people had something like Primal Shinto, which is what I return to, before organized religion. So if you look at the the so-called Old Testament, the Old Testament, to take it on its head, is actually, in historical terms, a very new and modern testament, because it emerged at a time when humans were already, it emerged from a civilization that was already very highly advanced. The ancient Israel Hebrew civilization, it was already very advanced, with codified rituals, with an advanced. So economics is the base of all human society. To understand the culture of society, you look at the economic base. The society in which the Old Testament arose was already so many tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of years. Basically, they already had culture. They already had divisions of labor. They already had a pastoral agricultural economy as opposed to a hunter-gathering economy. So major religions have the benefit that they exist in history because they they have codified forms that basically they already had a writing system. So when I say the so-called Old Testament is actually the New Testament, I'm not talking about Christianity or Judaism. It is a New Testament because it emerged in very recent times, at the tip of the iceberg of human history. So the old is so-called old is actually profoundly new in light of the actual historical age when you date the religions. Many old religions don't have anything written down. They are oral traditions. And what the religions deal with are deeply connected with historical materialism, the mode of production which determines the means of the mode of production is based upon the means and the relations of production. In a society of rough hunter gathering, where people hunt big game and they share it equally, where uncontacted tribes, people are roughly happy, deep happy from cradle to grave, are fundamentally different from the societies of Jesus and the Buddha. Buddha dealt with a society extraordinarily similar to Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ and Buddha both came from highly advanced civilizations. And the problem with advancement is that you have misery and suffering. You no longer have the rough, happy equality of the uncontacted tribe. You have systems of deep division. This is evident if anybody reads the New Testament, which I do, which I thoroughly do. You'll see there are classes, there are elites, the Pharisees, Sadducees, classes of elites, high, priests, um, elite foreigners, Romans, elite, elite, rich, wealthy, aristocratic Jews in the time of Jesus, and then you have the poor Jewish underclass. They're homeless. They can barely survive. You have the Samaritans. You have this whole class-based society. It's so unequal, so much suffering, and which is exact mirror of Buddha's society, which is extremely interesting. So the key thing is that I don't think the teachings of Buddha or Jesus, when they say that you will always have the poor or that life is suffering per the Buddha, I don't think they are eternal truths, because these sufferings are contingent upon, they have a time and place. They're based on this society, deeply unequal society, which mirrors the societies of today. So they feel like eternal truths. If you go to Seattle, if you go across America, you'll see deep inequality. If you go to China, you'll see probably even more miserable inequality, 1,000 times worse than any inequality you'll find in modern day United States. So that's kind of a poke at communism there. So-called communism, the more unequal. But basically, the nonetheless, religion modern religion arose from advanced society. before you have religion, Primal Shinto was merely proto-religion before the means and relations of production developed to a settled agricultural pastoral system. My Primal Shinto is based on a pastoral hunter-gathering mode of subsistence. So it is not based on the teachings of society that deal with the problems. Why does Buddha have such complicated, no, not such sophisticated teachings to deal with sophisticated modern day problems? Because Buddha was birthed in a civilization that was highly advanced, and the problems of his time are also the problems of today's society. Maybe when the means and relations and the mode of production, the productive forces arise, this is Marxism here, arise to such an extent where there is again a rough equality, basically going from primitive equality to modern inequality to once more to advanced equality, aka communism. Maybe there won't be the same sufferings that Jesus or Buddha talked about. And the point of that, historical point of that, is that there was even today, in the distant past, everybody was hunter-gatherer. And there are societies of hunter-gatherers where people are indeed happy from cradle to grave. They don't have skyscrapers, but they are happy. So the point is that the teachings of Jesus and Buddha have a place in history and time. Now, what does this say about Primal Shinto? If Primal Shinto is based on an ancient primitive age that is long gone, how can Primal Shinto be relevant? In a way, it is not relevant, because if you need to have the answers to your life, because the problems of Buddha's time, the problems of Jesus' time, is the problems of today's time, which is why both Shinto, even modern Japanese shrine Shinto, is not something held up as religion to answer people's 99 problems or life problems in general, because it is so, it doesn't have, it doesn't have basically this whole, it's not a full-fledged religion. It's not designed to answer your questions the same way as Christianity, Buddhism, or Islam. So shrine Shinto in itself still has its primal roots. But basically, again, people don't ask, how is your walk with Amaterasu? It just doesn't work like that, my people. Okay, so I think the primal Shinto and shrine Shinto as reverence for nature works even into the distant future if their starships go into different worlds, because even when before people had religion, they looked up at the stars with reverence. Even if the whole world is atheist, like Richard Dawkins, people will still look at the Earth. Maybe they'll be on a planet looking back at the Earth, visiting the Earth, but they will still have reverence for nature because we are built with reverence for nature. So Primal Shinto will be relevant from the Stone Age to the Space Age. From this Primal Shinto, because it is representative of our primal instinctive longings, it will be relevant when we are hunter-gatherers, and it will still be relevant when people are gazing at planets from aboard their starships.